Welcome to the Dibley Diaries for this week. This week we're going to be listening to the John 6 and Jesus saying, I am the bread of life. And so I've been thinking about communion across our rural areas, different rural churches in which I've worked, and what that means, both practically and theologically. How that's often quite different in rural environments to other places. So if you work in a very rural place, then your church may have celebrate Holy Communion once a month. It may only have once every 2 months have communion, and yet none of the places where I've worked have managed to coordinate the purchasing of communion supplies. So that means if you have to buy a 50 pack of something, you may be on year 5 of having to have stored that in a really damp building in a way that keeps it safe and not mouldy. And in fact, I have had very mouldy large priest wafers presented to me before now by someone going, that's okay, isn't it? And I'm thinking, no, that's really not. That's definitely mould. I'm really hoping it's not ergot. We're not going to use it. So it's kind of those things which can be practical. Can you even share the ordering amongst different places so that it would make things work well, so that actually if you go somewhere, you know that you're not going to be presented with a communion wafer that is more than a year old in any place. That would be fantastic. That is my dream administration for the place where I currently work. It would be if we could actually all together at the beginning of the year be given fresh communion produce that would last through the year, and then do it again at another point. Doesn't have to be January, could be some other time, so that we know that nothing we're giving anybody is actually more than a year old. I don't know how to actually try and make that happen where I am. And then there's the theological differences as well. How do people feel about the consecrated elements, the wafers and the wine once they've been consecrated? I have to admit, with some horror some time ago, I saw somebody just lift the consecrated wafers from the pattern that were spare and put them back in the box with about 100 other wafers. And I'm thinking, I'm sure God doesn't mind. I'm sure God doesn't mind. But I really wish you hadn't just done that. And that is to do with talking to people to try and understand what the theology of each place is and how that can be well served, with their understanding of what communion is about and about what would be a really good way of looking after the elements of communion and keeping them really fresh and good to use. In Thought for the Week this week, we are thinking about the John 6 passage where Jesus is saying that I am the bread of life. And this is the passage that comes very shortly after the feeding of the 5,000, and Jesus is talking to people, and I think it's all partly to do with him trying to think, I am not a source of your food security, but it's something more important, something really spiritual is going on. And I've been thinking this week about what does that mean? What does that spiritual nourishment mean? And what does that look like? So it's the Olympics at the moment, and I've been thinking about some of the videos that I've seen on YouTube, on Reels and stuff, which have things like what I eat in a day of, and there are all sorts of things. What you eat in the day, I eat in the day as an athlete. What I eat in my day as a nutritionist. What do I eat in my day of this and day of that? And actually, Tom Daly has one quite recently, which is from May, of when he was at a competition, of what he was eating on that particular competition day. And then that made me think, well, if we were going to make a video of what spiritual food do I eat as a Christian, what would that look like? What does it mean for us? What does the spiritual food of eating Jesus's bread of life, what does that look like to us? I mean, I know the simple tick box answer would be, oh, we have communion, but spiritual food is much more than that. What is it that we would eat to make us really good at being a Christian. Interestingly, Tom Daly's video has loads of protein and chicken and egg and rice and sweet corn, and he has some bananas to ward off cramp and an electrolyte drink, and so there's things like that. But actually what is it that as a Christian we want to be eating to make us a good Christian? And as I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the little beginning of Hebrews 12, where Paul talks about running the race as a Christian, running the race as a Christian. I have a disease which means that I have to be really careful what I eat, and it can even be trace amounts that can make it very difficult for me. And I was away on an organised trip to see some charity work in the autumn, and the people organising the trip were very, very anxious that I would be able to get food that would be safe for me to eat. And I had to say, I really appreciate your concern, and yes, we'll work on this, but in the end it's my responsibility what I put in my body, and if I don't think it's safe to eat, I won't eat it. I just won't do it. And it's that kind of sense of responsibility. Towards the end of that week, they did see me order a meal. I thought I had discussed exactly what I needed when it arrived. The people had obviously not been listening to me, and I sent the meal back and just said I can't eat that. And that was fine, because that was my responsibility. That was something which I was doing. So I guess my question is, in our responsibility of what we are eating to run the Christian race well, what is it? What is being our nutrition? What is our bread of life for us? Is it reading the Bible? Is it spending time praying whilst we're walking the dog? Is it going to join in worship with other people? Is it the things that we read? Is it going for a walk? Is it singing songs and hymns, or which may even be recordings? What is it that will give us the nutrition, the spiritual nutrition that Jesus is promising when he says, I am the bread of life? Whatever it is, we should be looking at that for ourselves. It's going to be different for each of us, but it is our own responsibility to do that. What is it that we should be eating so that we can run well in the race of life? What is it for us when Jesus says, I am the bread of life? What is that for us that we should be feeding ourselves on in order to be able to run the race of the Christian life well? The Dibley moment for the week this week is about food in a church setting in a rural environment, but could be somewhere else. But there was a very, very lovely lady who, whenever she asked, what food would you like for the children's light party in October, she would offer to make asparagus rolls, and I would go, ooh, yes, please. Now, honestly, the children were never going to eat asparagus rolls. They're a kind of sandwich which has cream cheese and then asparagus rolled up and then cut into little round slices. I would say yes, please, because, well, I like them so much and they were delicious, but also a lot of the other volunteers really liked them. So whilst the children were not touching them, they wouldn't go near them with a barge pole, we all felt that they gave us that sustenance that we needed during the party, which could be quite full on, whilst the children were enjoying their cocktail sausages and party rings. We would go off in turns to the kitchen and have a couple of the delicious asparagus rolls. They were some good nutrition for us at that time. Well, that's it for the Dibley Diaries for this week. I pray that you and your village, however large or small, have a really blessed week, and that you can all be nutritionally filled spiritually this week.